everybody. Sorry for the delay. The usual technical difficulties, and once again, tech support puppy's not here to help me. I think I got it figured out, and I think you can all hear me. Um, Sounds like the microphone's working now. So glad that you're all tuned in tonight. We've got all kinds of fun things to look at, and we do have quite a bit of audio tonight between different nature sounds and different music in the background. If you're listening on a device that, or watching on a device that has the sound turned down, you might want to turn it up just a skosh so you can keep track of all the action. With that, let's go ahead and get ourselves started here, and we'll see if I can get our screen share going. Someday I'm going to make this so that it's just smooth as silk, but in the meantime, you have to put up with this little bit of awkwardness. Here we go. Alrighty, enough of that. This past week's column, we re-examined a topic that I had written about a few years back, but I've just been seeing so much of it lately, I thought it was worth bringing up again, and that is blue jays and acorns. Now, when we think of fall and we think of the nut crops in the trees, and by the way, if we haven't said it enough, we are in the midst of a huge mast year this year. There's acorns, there's black walnuts, there's hickory nuts. All the trees are just loaded with nuts, and they continue to drop. I was over at Potawatomi today, and the squirrels and the blue jays were duking it out in one of the trees. Just grabbing as many nuts as they possibly can. With When we picture that the iconic image of a squirrel holding an acorn, that kind of sums up what we see as the relationship between acorns and the wildlife around them, how their nuts get dispersed. But really, if it was up to squirrels, most of our oak trees would be in just massive clumps because squirrels can only go so far with that nut in their mouth. Sooner or later they're going to have to stop and dig a hole and put it in the ground. They're just sort of limited because they are mammals. They don't fly. Blue jays, however, when they pick up a nut or two or three or five, they can load them up, and then they have the advantage of flight. So they can get away from some of their closest competitors like the squirrels, and we'll throw chipmunks in that classification too, and they will take these nuts sometimes miles away from that mother oak tree, and that helps the oak tree species to spread, and it gives the blue jays a little something to look forward to as we get into winter. A lot of the nuts that they're taking away with them, they are caching. So the question though is, when I said, wait a minute, not just one or two, but three, four, or five nuts, how are they doing this? Well, look closely at the bird in this image and look below its bill, and you can see there's just a little bit of inflation, a little inflated area underneath the bill of this bird, which, by the way, is the blue jay. And here's a couple more images. On the left, we have a bird with just a single acorn. And then on the right, we've got one where the acorn is barely visible. And again, there's that inflated area underneath the bill. Well, that's called a gular pouch. And it's not the gizzard, it's not the crop. It's just sort of a enlarged area that allows the blue jay to pack it in. He can do this too. He or she can do this with other types of foods too. Another thing they go crazy for this time of year at bird feeding stations is peanuts. Peanuts in a shell are a little big to choke down, but peanuts that have been shelled, they can load up several, fly them away. What's really amazing too is once they take them to a place where they're going to stash or cache them, sometimes it's behind the bark of a tree, but a lot of times it's in the ground. They actually have the ability to remember where they put them. Um, they're not alone in this ability to carry a lot of food around. That gular pouch, it's actually though it's not terribly common in our local birds in this area. A lot of the perching birds don't have that capability, but a lot of our fish feeding birds do. Pelicans are probably the most famous. The pouch that's underneath their bill can hold something like, I don't know, 3 gallons or so of water. It's several times what will actually fit in the stomach. So when they scoop the fish up that they're going to eat, they then kind of sift out and strain out the water and leave what they're going to swallow underneath in that pouch. But pelicans and cormorants, we see those around here. If you travel around, you might see other species like the frigate birds and the anhingas taking advantage of this really cool anatomical adaptation. Um, but blue jays, they have this. They're part of the corvid family, so they're related to crows, and then scrub jays. There's a few other, as you travel around the country, other members of this family, but they're generally recognized as being really smart birds to start with. Their brains, they have a high brain mass in relation to body mass size. They are multiple levels of intelligence with these birds. Um, they, besides being able to say recognize faces of their friends and also their enemies, they also have a really good spatial recall. They have a larger hippocampus. It's the part of the brain that helps remember that. We see this too. The hippocampus actually can change size in some species at this time of year. Squirrels, their hippocampus works really well too when they're stashing their nuts. Chickadees are another species where there's been a lot of research and studies done looking at how that part of the brain actually enlarges at this time of the year. Blue jays, though, it's pretty big all the time, so they can remember not just what they've gathered and where they put it, but this last part. This is courtesy of Houston Audubon. They posted this fact. They can also remember if it's a perishable item, how long it can sit before it spoils. Now, I don't know, and I can't imagine there's any studies looking at this, but I've always heard that. Our acorns in this area. So we've got white oaks, we've got bur oaks, we've got red oaks. Those are kind of the three most common species. We've also got a few other ones around, but those are the ones we see most often in our parks. Of those, the bur oak and the white oak, they have slightly less tannins in. They're not quite as bitter as the red oak acorns. Red oak acorns tend to get buried for longer periods of time before they're dug up. Squirrels will bury these first, and they tend to eat the white oak acorns before they eat the red ones. And I'm not sure if that's the same with blue jays or not. I'll have to pay a little closer attention, but I'm wondering if they are able to um, discern any sort of difference in the taste of these things. You know, for a long time, we thought that birds didn't have much of a sense of taste or smell, but there's again more research going on, and as we're able to look inside birds more and more, whether it's through x-rays or CAT scans or MRIs or actually dissecting the birds, we're finding that um, the parts of the brain that relate to taste and smell are larger than they should be if the animal isn't actually using those senses. So um, we might do a segment down the road looking a little bit more closely at bird taste and smell. But suffice it to say, the blue jays are out there right now. They actually have a preference for the smaller acorns, which sometimes tend to be a little bit more bitter, but they like that because they can fit more in their mouths. And they take them off and they bury them. Um, Most of them are recalled, but a blue jay over the course of a month can actually collect and hide or bury thousands of acorns. So the odds are that whether they forget about them or they just don't bother because they've got so many stashed, there are some that do get left behind. Which leads me to this email. It came in over the weekend. This gentleman had read this column about blue jays and acorns, and he says he doesn't know if it was a blue jay or a squirrel, but 2 years ago he saw a 6-inch weed growing in one of his flower beds. He pulled it up and discovered that it was an acorn bursting to life. Having a spot where they'd always wanted to plant a tree, he put it in and protected it. The mighty oak is now 15 inches high. Last year in the same bed, a repeat, but this time it was a pecan. So now we have Mighty Oak coming on strong in the front yard and Princess Pecan becoming a beauty queen in the backyard. So many wonderful things in nature. Always love to hear from people who enjoy being outdoors. Well, not only did he write to tell us that, but he also sent pictures. So here we've got Mighty Oak growing in the front yard, and Princess Pecan here is in the backyard. I want to correspond a little bit more with this gentleman because I've got oaks about the same size in my yard, and I tend to lose them at about the size. Not right now, but as we get into winter, the rabbits come through. So this year, what I want to do is get some corrugated pipe, like the kind you put by your some pump discharge, or they sell it as drain tile too. Anyway, I want to, because the trees are still pretty small and the branching is minimal, I want to put those over the trees that I have in my backyard to see if I can protect them from the rabbits this coming winter. I want to see if this gentleman does something similar to protect his. But anyway, it might be from blue jays. He actually does not have oaks or pecan trees in his yard, so they are coming some distance. And I think he'll be able to fill us in a little bit more on those details as we correspond further. But anyway, just kind of a cool look at how these nuts get distributed. And yes, squirrels do bring some of them, take some of them away, but they can only go so far. If you really want your nuts to go far, ask a blue jay to do it for you. All right, well, with that, I wanted to give you the details of a dramatic water rescue. This happened Sunday evening. I was at my mom's house. I was actually getting ready to give one of the dogs a bath. And I went in the basement and I started to fill the stationary tub up, and I saw there was a creature struggling in the deluge that was occurring. It was a house centipede. These are the creatures that people love to. I don't know if they love to hate them or if they just love to scream at them. But this is a creature that I've had encounters with. Gosh, for most of my life, they've lived in my parents' basement, and I'd hear my mom scream. They lived in one of our apartments when I was down at U of I. I'd hear my roommates scream. They are at the Potawatomi Community Center, and I've heard many receptionists scream when they come out of the holes where the cables come out of the walls, and there's, some space for these creatures to come out of. But these are really cool and I think underappreciated animals. So I reached in and pulled it out and put it on a towel, because how else do you dry off a centipede? And I thought this would be a good picture to kind of show you the different parts on a centipede. So we've got, of the multi-legged creatures in this area, we've got centipedes and we've got millipedes. Centipedes have one pair of legs per body segment. Millipedes have 2 pairs of legs, so even more. Now, these house centipedes, they are not they're called a cosmopolitan species because humans have moved around so much, and these guys tend to hide away in boxes and dark crevices and furniture and things like that. We've moved them all around the world, so they're present in all sorts of places. But they do prefer to be uh, around humans or indoors. Because that protects them from whatever climates they've been moved to. Um, but they, as centipedes, they are predators. And up at the front here, I guess we can't see it too well in this photo, but at the head, which is here on the right, there is a pair of modified legs. Oh, here we can kind of see one here below the antennae. Um, those modified legs are fangs, and that's how they inject the venom that immobilizes their prey. And when we talk about prey, we're talking about a lot of things that um, might become pests or harmful in our houses. Silverfish are big on these guys' lists. That's why we often find them in damp areas like basements because that's where some of their prey will hang out. But insects in general that we might have them over multiplying in our house, you want to have some house centipedes there to help keep those under control. Now, it was kind of cute after I got this little one out of the tub. Um, I put it on the towel here, and watch what it starts to do here. It is drying off its antennae. So its antennae are its key. This is how it perceives its world. It does have eyes, but those antennae there. Um, See how it's working them through its mouth there, and it's just getting the water off them. That's what's going to help it sense its surroundings in the keenest fashion. So it sat there on the towel, and I was glad that I'd gotten it out quick enough that it didn't drown. Sometimes these guys, because they don't breathe in through their mouths, they've got they can drown much easier than humans can, or animals can, because of the way they take air into their bodies. There's lots of holes there that can absorb the water. But anyway, it survived. It dried off, and after a few minutes, it was ready to take off. And this, I think, is why people kind of squeal when they see them. They give the perception of moving really quickly. Let's watch it one more time. You can watch how these legs move. You can see it's looking for cover, and the it actually, before I had the sense to video it running, it ran off. This is on top of the dryer. It ran off one side and it fell in a spider web. And I thought, doggone it, I am after we've got you rescued and dried off and you're cleaned up, I'm not going to let you die at the hands of a spider. So um, after that, I think it felt like it just had been bothered and harassed to the point where it just needed some quiet time. So it went inside the folds of this towel, which I let it chill there while I gave the dog a bath. And then when that was over, I carefully took the centipede over to another corner of the basement where hopefully it won't scare my mom's housekeepers because they would probably squish it. But anyway, house centipedes, they are, even though they're kind of creepy and wiggly, they are some of the good guys that we share a space with. And if you can at all resist the urge to stomp on them, I would encourage you to do that because they will make your house a better place by being there. All right, so let's go on to a couple more thoughts that will maybe bug you. Last week we talked about wheel bugs, and I was curious how many of you had seen them. And it occurred to me, I had a couple of close encounters over this past week that I thought maybe it would be good to go over a couple more uh, points, and that would be um, looking at these two examples here. So on the left, first of all, The wheel bud, that's a member of the assassin bug family. But what we're looking at here are two members of the leaf-footed bug family. So the wheel bug that can bite humans, and from everything I've heard and read about, gives a very painful bite. These two are plant feeders, the leaf-foot bugs. On the left side here, we have the western conifer seed bug, and it feeds on conifers. Um, it overall looks a little similar to the wheel bug, but it doesn't have that cog-like wheel on its back. It moves the same way. It's got a piercing and sucking mouth part, but it only feeds on plants. I had one of these in my kitchen the other day, and I was watching it move around. There's a couple things that I tried to have happen. One, there are rare instances where they can use their piercing and sucking mouth part to pierce human skin. That did not happen when I picked the bug up. The other thing, they release a very strong odor that probably is comprised of some of the or made up of some of the aroma compounds from what they're feeding on. And when you're feeding on the sap of conifers, when you're feeding on the needles or the seeds in the pine cones, you might smell a little bit like a pine cone, or a pine or a fir, a spruce. I didn't get any of that to happen. It was just tried to crawl out of my hand, and it didn't bite, and it didn't release any odor. I'm gonna see if I can find another one. I was a little actually kind of surprised. We see these at Potawatomi. Potawatomi Community Center has a lot of pine trees planted around it. I don't have any pine. I've got some cedar trees in the front yard, but I don't know if cedar is on these guys' list. My neighbor to the south does have a spruce tree, so maybe it had come over there, come over from that tree. But anyway, this is a bug that is trying to enter houses right now. But again, it is not a wheel bug, and it's not an assassin bug. It is a bug that feeds on plants. In fact, one of the things you can look for on these guys, see on the back legs here, there's that enlarged or flattened part. That is a giveaway that we're looking at an insect in the leaf-footed bug family. Now, over here on the right, we've got a squash bug, and western conifer seed bug feeds on conifers. Squash bugs, they feed on squash. So if you've got a garden, these guys can actually do some damage to your squash plants. They're not well liked by gardeners, but they are quite common at this time of year. They've matured right alongside of the squash plants, and if you've got your garden anywhere near your house, sometimes these guys will start to come in as well. Uh, Piercing, sucking mouth part, but feeds on plants, does not feed on other bugs, doesn't typically bite humans. But I just wanted to put these two out there because they're in the same order as the wheel bug, and they are being seen right now. The Western conifer seed bug is trying to get into houses right alongside of the stink bugs and the ladybugs. The squash bug, they are more accidental entries, but they are being seen pretty much everywhere where there's squash growing these days. All right, just wanted to put those out there so you can keep an eye out for them and take whatever measures you feel are necessary to either let them in or keep them out. So this other thing I've been seeing an awful lot of too, and you guys have probably noticed this too if you've been around um, waterways, is the duckweed. I suspect our lack of rain has caused a lot of water that might otherwise move a little bit more to sit still. This is one of the ponds over at Delnor Woods. It's actually one of a series of ponds that's along a drainage system on the east side of town here. And when we have a lot of rain, these ponds water courses through them. It's one of the ways that certain neighborhoods on the east side of town get drained. So There is movement, even though it's a pond. It's contained by a dam, and when we get a lot of rain, the water washes over. But without the rain this year, the duckweed has been able to proliferate here and in many places along in a lot of places along the Fox River, a lot of our retention ponds. Duckweed can feed off of nutrients in the water. So if there's lawn chemicals and things that are getting washed in, and then they're not getting washed out because we didn't get rain, that's going to feed and grow these populations. Well, duckweed it's, people look at that and they go, ew, it's all mucky, it's full of algae. But duckweed actually is not an algae. Um, here's this is actually over at the Potawatomi golf course. This is a great blue heron that was wading through the duckweed on one of the golf course holes. I was watching it and I thought, boy, is it being is duckweed impeding the heron's ability to hunt? Well, I almost put the camera on video, but the bird was standing so still. I thought, well, I'll just take a still shot. Although I still managed to make it blurry, didn't I? Well, anyway, the second after I snapped the picture, the heron reached through the duckweed and came up with a bluegill, sunfish, and swallowed it. So, the heron's keen eyesight and the fact that these are all just tiny little plants. It isn't a mat of one, massive organism. These are all tiny little plants clumped together. The heron was actually able to see through it down into the water and was able to successfully grab a little snack. So here's a closer look at the individual duckweeds, and on the right here, this is the drawings that are in our Kane County Bible of Local Plants, the Dick Young book, King County Wild Plants and Natural Areas. Dick actually names three different types of duckweed in this area. Um, Lemna minor is the small duckweed, and I think that's what we have here. He describes it as a common floating aquatic, sometimes completely covering a shallow pond surface. It will have overlapping leaves and a single root. So see, these are plants. In fact, I've heard that duckweed is our smallest flowering plant. Um, these roots pull the nutrients up out of the water, and then the leaf on top photosynthesizes, and that's how we get more duckweed. Um, but Dick also lists two other forms of duckweed: the forked duckweed, which is pictured down there on the bottom. That's Lemna trisulca. He calls it uncommon, and it's found over at Nelson Lake Marsh. It has interconnected leaves and only one root per plant. So, um, forked leaves as opposed to the small duckweed that has the rounded leaves. Um, and then we have great duckweed. This is also considered uncommon. He listed as being at Burr Woods, which is off of Burr Road, and also at Nelson Lake. It is characterized by miniature floating leaves, often reddish on the underside, and many roots per plant. So, um, not all duckweeds are alike. It's a big year for it. I'd like to get out a little bit more before the cold water brings an end to the growing, or cold weather brings an end to the growing season. But we're seeing a lot of it, and it's not mucky, it's not algae. It's a cool little flowering plant that just happens to be having a really good year this year. So with that, I don't know if any of you are fans of the movie Airplane. Um, that's what the little reference is there at the title of this slide. Barbara Billingsley in the movie uh, offers to interpret what two gentlemen they're experiencing some distress after having eaten the fish, and she lets the stewardess know that she speaks jive. Well, I'm going to teach you a little bit, not jive, but squirrel. Let's take a listen. This is a recording, and this is one you might have to listen in closely for because there was some wind that got in the way here. Um, you hear that sound in the tree? So I've been hearing this sound a lot lately, and you may have too. If you walk around in the daytime, and if you're near um, trees that have squirrels in them, chances are you're hearing this too. The squirrels, we've talked about this the last couple of weeks. They're super busy right now. They're gathering this great abundance of nuts that we have, and so they're spending a lot of time down on the ground. Collecting the nuts and burying the nuts. And then when a human or a human with a dog comes along, they run up the tree because we are perceived as being threats to them. Well, there's a few vocalizations that we're hearing at this time of year, and I found a cool article that kind of explains them. There's the cuck and the quah, and the cuck is it's almost like a little bark. Um, it's made the squirrel will make these cucking sounds to warn other squirrels, and it's also letting the predator know that it's been seen. There were some studies that were done where a cat was introduced to an area with squirrels, and the researchers noted that not only did when the squirrels did their cucking sound, they warned each other, but then the cat learned to recognize that sound too, to know that it had been spotted. So it has kind of two different effects when the sound is made. The qua is what we were just hearing. Um, that's issued generally when they're starting to feel as though the danger is starting to lessen. There's still something wrong in the area, but it might be moving on. Here's a recording of these two sounds together. That's the cuck. So, and there's the qua. So hearing that a lot lately, and it sounds like they're whining, but it's a signal to other squirrels in the area that yes, there's danger, but um, it's not cuck worthy. So cuck 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 cuck. The sharp bark of them. That's you know kind of like the alerts that we hear on our phones, the alarms going off. The qua is a little bit of a downgrade, and then the qua moan, that is the squirrels telling each other that, gosh, we're not seeing it anymore, but we just did, so it might still be in the area. Let's use a little caution. The qua moan sounds like this. So something to keep in mind. They're very vocal right now. Another part of squirrel communication, and I didn't have any good video to show. They use their tail a lot. Tail shakes will often accompany some of these vocalizations. So um, if they're within eyesight of another squirrel, they will also use their tails to indicate their level of excitement as well. But lots of cool sounds going on right now. Something for you to keep your ears open for and to be aware of. So, since we're on the topic of noise, there's this was a Facebook message that I got the other night, and it was just a brief little note that said, "What is this?" And turned out this was a friend of a friend. He's been hearing this sound every night, and it sounds like this. right, so there's some clues there. Yeah, it's nighttime, and this is a sound that was repeating about every 15 to 20 seconds, really driving this homeowner nuts. He'd been spending time out on his. We've had this unseasonably warm weather. He'd been spending time outside, but as night would fall, this sound would come out. He's, what the heck is it? It's not a frog. It's not an insect. Um, and he would shine a light up there, but he just couldn't see what it was. And then sometimes it would move. He would hear it from the other side of the house. Um, what he's hearing and what you heard is the begging calls of a young great horned owl. Doesn't sound at all like the cool, the sounds they make as they mature, but we're really getting towards the end of the time when the young owls, the young of this year, when they're dependent on their parents, the parents are withholding food. Um, they've been feeding these guys ever since, well, most great horned owls around here, they hatch out usually in February. So this has been a long haul for the parents. It's time. In fact, the parents are entering into their courtship phase for their next round of breeding. So it's time for the young of the year to get out on their own. But some go, I think, a little more willingly than others. Um, Last year, up the street from my house at the schoolyard, there were three young great horned owls that would do this begging call. And they were from distinctly different areas of the schoolyard. One was usually near the backstop of the baseball field, and the two others would be in small trees. Well, then as the fall progressed last year, I would only hear two, and then it was early December, and there was still one young great horned owl that was hanging in there, didn't want to leave, expected, one more night of meals from mom and dad. Um, that eventually, subsided too, and then hopefully that went on to, live a prosperous life somewhere away from mom and dad's home territory. But that's what that noise is. If instead of walking around in the daytime listening to squirrels, if you happen to be walking around at night, it's a good chance that you'll be hearing this begging. You might still be hearing this begging call, but you might also be hearing the courtship hoots of the parent owls, because yeah, we're getting close to that season again. They typically start back up again with courting in October into November. December, they're doing their site selections for their nests, which they don't make themselves. They're kind of seeing what's available out there. It might be an old red-tailed hawk nest. It might be a broken off tree. Um, might be a squirrel nest or an old crow's nest. And then they proceed with their breeding in January and into February. But anyway, that's what that sound is. Sounds like a cat or something. It's probably a young great horned owl. So we're gonna ease into something different here, something we've not done before. Uh, I thought we'd play a little game tonight called Guess the Nature Thing. Um, I was walking, let's see, where was I? I was over on Route 31, and uh, right by the Baker Community Center, and I saw this thing on the ground, and I thought, wow, that's really cool. Uh, but I couldn't quite place it. It reminded me of, some sort of exotic little creature, the shell of something, and but it was kind of leathery. And I looked around, and I started seeing other ones, and I thought, oh, you know what? Where am I? I'm on a sidewalk. I am near some trees. You guys, the part of this game that I hadn't figured out yet was how you can buzz in and tell your answer if I suppose we could use the chat function if anybody has an idea of what this might be, but it was bumpy and leathery. There's kind of a clue here in the picture on the right because I found one that was turned over. We could see the inside of it. You can see this one too. It kind of has a little stem on it. Um, and Jerry says chestnut shell, and the answer is ding, 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 ding. Yes, that I guessed horse chestnut shell, just because that's what's mostly planted in this area. To tell you the truth, horse-nut chestnuts and Ohio buckeyes still vex me more often than I can understand them. But yes, the chestnut shell, I looked over, and sure enough, next to the parking lot of the building that's behind the Baker Community Center was this enormous old horse chestnut tree, and this was the shell of it. So I just thought these were kind of cool looking. I might, of course, I don't know. You know, I pick these things up and I never know what to do with them, but I might go back and collect some just because they're so tactile. They might be good for some of the programs and some of the outreach that we do. They felt really cool too, and are neat to look at as well. So anyway, if you're out and you're walking and it's daytime and you see something weird like this on the sidewalk, look around you, and chances are that will lead you to a horse chestnut tree. So we might play that game again because I find a lot of mystery objects when I'm out rambling around. Anyway, let's go. We're going to finish up here. Uh-oh. Well, we're not going to do anything if the slides are hung up. Okay, there we go. All right, we're going to finish up with something we've not done before. It's a little waltz, and it's a little bit of a tribute to what we're seeing at this time of the year. With the recent rains, let me turn this down a little bit. With our recent rains, we've had a tremendous uptick in the number of and types of mushrooms that we're seeing in the area. I really wanted to be able to identify all of these mushrooms for you, but we're just going to look at all the pretty pictures. Thanks to Jerry and also Sister Laura. Appreciate you sharing some of your photos for this segment. Uh-oh. Well, that ended quickly. um, Not sure what happened there, but eh, we'll turn it off for now. That was just you know what? No, we're gonna go back because you have to see the last. You have to see the last image. Um, there we go from the current slide. Laura, this was. There it is. The best puffball of the season right there, folks. All right, enough of that. I'm going to stop the share. I'm going to turn it over to you. Does anybody have any questions? Um, nope. That didn't play for you. That only played for me, didn't it? um, all right, let me. I got you. I'm going to share the screen one more time. There we go. We're going to share this image right here. Laura, hats off to you for finding the best puffball mushroom of the season. put a smile on my face. I hope it puts a smile on your face too, even though I totally screwed up the technology side of it. Um, does anybody have anything, any things you've seen this past week? Any questions you might have come across or cool nature things um, that you'd like to share with us? If not, I want to say thanks so much for your time. Next week we've got let's see. Well, we'll be talking about all kinds of nature stuff. I'm trying to think of what didn't fit in this week. Yeah, it'll be a surprise. Appreciate you folks tuning in tonight, and hope you come back again next week. I'll try to get my act together by then. Have a good rest of your week, everybody.
Thanks, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Take care.
Good night.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks, Pam.
Thank you, Pam.
Thanks,
Night,
Pam.
everybody.
Thanks, Miss Pam.
Thanks, Pam. Glad you worked it in.
It's gonna kill me.
I'm like, oh no, it's
Where did it go? Oh well, I'm thinking I'm gonna get it blown up. Be my screensaver.
not there. There you go.
Thanks, Laura.
Bye, Pam.
Bye bye.